Hello and welcome to a new week of Acts of the Blood God. I am your host, Eric Van Allen. Kat is out for spokes. It happens all the time. We gotta keep an eye on her, Nadia.
Has a problem. We're doing an intervention, so if you remember any good anti-smoking PSAs from the days when you were like young enough to sneak cigarettes from your father without getting caught, please take those messages from the television and send them Kat's way. And Kat's gonna come back and get a whole bunch of like anti-smoking PSAs. Like, what happened? What did you do this time, Nadia?
What's the Simpsons one that's just like smoke, smoke? Yeah, don't send her that one. Kat is out this week for various San Diego Comic-Con purposes, is my understanding. So it is just Nadia and I holding down the fort. We thought we'd do a class conscious because we haven't done one of those in a hot minute. We do love doing these, and y'all seem to love them every time we do them. So we figured we'd have some fun talking about this time summoners. What is a summoner? Great question. We're going to talk about it.
We're gonna fight about it a bit.
It was really funny that already I was going into it and I was like, oh, well, I have kind of a lot of thoughts about like, what does a summoner entail? Like, what does that mean? What is like the definition of a summoner? And then immediately all of the responses from the Blood God audience were that being like very, how do we define it? What is the, what is the nature of summoner? So we'll have some fun with that. Before we get there, of course, we are Acts of the Blood God. We are on Patreon, patreon.com/bloodgodpod, where you can go and support us. We have all kinds of different tiers. If you are a backing member at any level, right now, you can go and access, we've got the travel log from Summer Game Fest, which is finally up, as well as all of the interviews I did at Summer Game Fest. We talked about Magic the Gathering. They had their new Assassin's Creed set there. So John Carson and I played and talked about it a little bit. I did an interview with the Flintlock devs. That game actually just came out to kind of like a 7 out of 10 reception, which doesn't surprise me, but I do think it's kind of an interesting game. Very good Game Pass game, in my opinion. I think this is the year of the 7 out of 10 Game Pass game. So go check that out if you're playing Flintlock and you're interested in hearing more about like the creative decisions behind the game, because they are pretty interesting. My third interview was SteamWorld Heist 2, which is actually coming out pretty soon, start of August. So,
oh shoot, that's right. I want a code now. If you're listening, please send a code.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do about that.
God, that looks good.
But yeah, no, so those are all up. And then the travel log, oh my gosh, pure chaos. Many friends of the show that you'll recognize on there. Obviously, Jesse Vitelli, Ken Shepard, John Carson, Imran Khan. We've got one very long segment where I was standing in a circle near the cafe where everybody went to get coffee, and people just kept filtering in and out. So Reb Valentine, Matt Kim, Ben Hansen, Janet Garcia all kind of show up at random points throughout that and just talk about things. The Shadow the Hedgehog milkshake keeps coming up. We theorize on what is in the Shadow the Hedgehog milkshake. It's a great time.
Blood and fluids.
Well, the blood of the kid that dies, right? Because that's like a canonical event.
Maria.
Yeah. Doesn't like every time they do Shadow the Hedgehog, they have to like shoot that character, and
that
people go nuts for it.
I mean, when I was at the Sonic concert, they showed that scene, and just someone behind me screamed like someone had like beside them had been murdered. It was actually really funny.
See, I broadly, and this is going to give me heat, I've been on my villain arc on Blood God lately. This is going to give me heat. I'm not a Sonic the Hedgehog fan. Really, like, I like some of the 2D Sonics, specifically, like some of the older ones.
I'm a casual fan. Like, Mania's a great game.
Yeah, Mania. I like the advanced games a lot, actually. And then obviously Sonic 1, 2, 3, all pretty classic. I never really got into where I think the Sonic fandom kind of evolved into, which is like you have the people who like the retro games, and then you have the people who like the 3D, the adventure titles, right? And I think the adventure games are like the next level of Sonic sickoness, and then like the higher plane of Sonic sicko is you like read the comics and get it deep into that, and that's like the highest level of sickoness. But I never got past level 1. It's not that I dislike Sonic, I just don't see the.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Like, to to me, Sonic is a very nostalgic property. Like I have very good memories of. I went to a sleepover. My friends rented Sonic 2, and we had a great time. I mean, that's what I associate Sonic with. So I did like Adventure. I did play Adventure because my husband brought home a Dreamcast. I like Sonic Adventure 2, which is a well-directed game despite being a mess. It has a lot of really early cinematics that were really dramatic for their time, and of course, like "Live and Learn" is a great song. That's still a great boss battle with the final hazard. After that, I'm just kind of like, yeah, Sonic exists. He's cool. He's blue. He's says don't smoke. There you go. There's an anti-smoking PSA right there. You go to the original Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon, and there is actually straight up an anti-smoking PSA where there's a pack of smokes on the ground, and the grounder, like the drill bot, I swear to God, comes up to Tails, who's about to pick up the cigarettes, and he's like, "Give me my smokes!" And he like does the most practiced movement where he picks up the pack, takes like it out, like my grandfather, who was a chain smoker, just takes it out with his mouth and like lights up, and all this beautiful smooth motion, the most natural animation you've ever seen in your life. So but of course, this idiot robot, even though he can let us smoke like a champion, he swallows the smoke for some reason, and that's the message where like Sonic's like, "Oh, whoa, bro, that smoke will make you choke and it stunts your growth." Which was a real
smoke will make you
time.
choke. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was actually classic. But to this day, the grounder, the animation, I'm just like somebody who's chain smokes 10 packs a day animated this anti-PSA lie.
Incredible. We're already having pits at the beginning. This is what happens when Cat's not here.
Cat's not here to corral us in.
So yeah. Go check out the travel log. That's live now for if you back at any level. We were thinking about maybe putting it behind like the $5 or the $10, but I was like, this is a thing that's happening because people back the Blood God. Thank you all again for making it possible. It's really cool to like rep us at events and have people there, and then have like people within the industry being like, "Oh, Blood God, yeah," and we're like, yeah. And also shout outs to the community. Like people actually tell us that Blood God has a great community, and I love that, and y'all are as responsible for that as we are, so thank you everybody who listens, who tunes in, who's watching live on Twitch right now, twitch.tv/bloodgodpod. We record live every Saturday, theoretically at 9:30 a.m. PT in the morning. Now whether it's always that time, we fudge it a little bit.
Just show up at like a quarter after to be safe.
Yeah, just kind of show up, just it's vibes based, but we're doing that every Saturday. So if you want to hang out, tune in, catch these recordings live, see them done live. You get to see the podcast, a couple days before it comes out, but you also get to see our beautiful faces, which you don't get if you're listening to this in the audio version. Which is suddenly making me check that yes, indeed, Zencaster is running.
Oh,
I suddenly got very nervous about that. Other than that, obviously, we're also doing other streams. Kat was doing a Persona 3 stream for a while. I think that's kind of on pause. That might return. I don't know. I've been doing the Final Fantasy 6 stream. I'm playing through FF6 first time. So the next episode, as of talking right now on Saturday, those air on Sundays at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. And that'll be... God, where are we right now? We got back from the... it was like the Imperial base, and we like rescued the Espers that were there.
The last time I saw you play, you were crossing into Vector, and you were going to the Magitech factory.
So we got Maduin out and reunited Maduin with Terra, kind of learned how Terra was born, why Terra has these powers. Something happened with the character I like who does the magic catching, like she catches the magic. Celeste. Yeah, I was like Celia. No, that's not right. Celeste. She's great. I love her.
Oh, I love Celeste.
She's great because I imagine that like she just puts up a catcher's mitt, and every time they like throw out like an ice tube, she's like, "Got it." But then I kept accidentally blocking my own magic with it. It was crazy.
Oh, that's what you got to be careful of. That's why it's a deadly thing to play with. But there was some... Okay, first of all, what do you think of the 16-bit representation of sex between a beast and a woman? Before Final Fantasy XIV...
They didn't show any smashing. There wasn't direct smashing.
No, but it was, like, implied.
There was implied smashing, which I thought was crazy. I was like, wow, we have canonical sex in a Final Fantasy game. That doesn't happen super often. Like it really doesn't. You think about it?
Yeah.
Look, I played Final Fantasy X, and Titus and Yuna definitely did something in that lake. All right, like they did not just kind of float around a little bit and stuff like that. Nah. But Final Fantasy games are usually pretty tame. You know, even I'd say even FF16 was surprisingly tame in the way that it handled sex. And so to have a literal like plot beat be like, well, this lady crossed over into the monster world and there was a hot monster dude there. I mean, can you really blame her? Like nothing ventured, nothing gained. Eric plays old games is my new favorite segment. No sarcasm. Thank you, Shareable Texas. I've been enjoying it. It's been fun. It's been really, really good. I think Earthbound is next up after FF6. It's another one that I have not played. And then I don't know what we'll do after that. I've got kind of a couple different ideas that have been bouncing around in my head. It was really easy to say like the first three I'm going to do are like the 3 pillars of SNES RPGs that I have not played. After that, we could go in a lot of different directions. There are some PS1 RPGs I haven't played, but those are really, really long. I don't know if they're going to suit a like stream very well. Part of me is a little bit tempted to dig into the old PC RPGs and start maybe like a Fallout or a Planescape Torment, because that would be kind of fun. But we'll see. We'll figure it out. Anyways, Super Mario RPG, we could add the 4th pillar.
You haven't played that? No, you got to play that.
Yeah,
no, That, have you played Thousand Year Door yet?
No.
There's your homework. You got your homework.
The only Mario RPGs I've played are like the Mario and Luigi ones, the brothers ones. Yeah. So and I love Superstar Saga. That game is like If we ever get around to doing like a list of like the best RPGs on like Game Boy Advance or something like that, that's probably number one with a bullet. Like I enjoy Golden Sun. I've been enjoying my time with Golden Sun, but I think Superstar Saga is still like the best. It's so good. Anyways, go check all those out. Our streams every weekend, and we're gonna have the charity stream August 17th and 18th. Saturday and Sunday. We are planning our segments, we're planning our guests, we're planning our prizes, we're planning all kinds of different stuff. It's gonna be great. We're raising money for Trans Lifeline once again. We are looking to beat last year's record, which I believe we raised over $12,000 last year.
We did.
So I want to hit 15. That's my personal goal. I want to hit 15K. If we can hit 15K raise for Trans Lifeline, I'm going to feel really good. So that's kind of what we're aiming for. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your loved ones, tell your hated ones. If they got money, we'll take it.
Oh, yeah. Hate money is the same as love money.
Yeah, look, it all clears the same. I've learned that. If you want to say mean things about me, sub to Blood God for $5 a month. You can tell me mean things. Don't do
I'm a big girl.
Please.
I can take it.
Yeah. And also while you're there, we've got merch. You know, we've got our Twitch. Like I said, you can download old Pantheon episodes through the Patreon now. So if you don't want to sub at the Pantheon tier, but you want to just listen to a specific one, we've got them a la carte. We got so many different things. Axe the Blood God. All right, Nadia, that's enough preamble. Let's get into it. Yes. Class Conscious Summoner Edition.
Summoners, let's go.
All right, we love to summon magical little guys. Who doesn't love to summon a little guy who does magic, right? It's great.
What I do. That's what I do.
It's fantastic. We all love it. What makes summoning good? And I want to start there because we will talk about what makes a summoner. But Nadia, when you think of summoning, what appeals to you about the act of being a summoner?
Just the fact that I could command something that's probably going to be a lot bigger and a lot cooler than myself and a lot stronger, and somehow have that dragon or wolf or whatever convinced to go attack something on my behalf. There's a lot of power behind that. That's a lot of fun. And you can be friends. If you're, if you got a wolf, if you got a dragon or something, depending on who you are, you could be friends. Like, look at Maria from Castlevania. She's a good example of a summoner.
I think for me, the summoning is always, I like the idea of not just being a solo combatant, but like summoning additional things. Maybe this is like my Marvel brain talking, but like I love in Marvel versus Capcom or other tag fighters when you kind of like do a combo and then tag in the assist and they hop in and continue the combo or add to the combo. I love when you're watching like a movie or something and there's like a fight scene happening and there's kind of like a combination where two characters are like bouncing a character back and forth and beating them up like that. Jujutsu Kaisen does that a lot, and there is actually a character in JJK that is like a summoner type character. He summons a lot of different familiars and stuff, and it's super sick when they do stuff like that. I think that's what appeals to me, is the idea that like you kind of have this army that you're coordinating, that you're like, you are one person, but then you've got like this small army that rises up alongside you and can do all kinds of different things. I do think it's interesting when the summoner is kind of the classic like white mage, like stands in the back, is frail but summons powerful like allies to help. I also think it's interesting when the summoner is actually super powerful and they're kind of summoning their own backup. So like they can fight, they can go hand to hand and stuff, and they're just kind of like summoning their backup. It's really interesting, all the different ways that there are just different summoners. But now we got to talk about what the core identity of a summoner is. Nadia, the floor is yours. What is a summoner?
That is so hard to really put a beat on, because when I think of summoners, the first summoner I was really familiar with was Rydia from Final Fantasy IV. So to me, a summoner is someone who has a connection with their monsters, because Rydia's story is all about, her connection to her summons, especially after a tragedy that occurs with her and her mother. And you go in Final Fantasy IV to the land of summoned monsters, aka the Feymarch, and you get to know these monsters, and they're all like, "Hey, Rydia, what's up?" So she knows them, they know her, and then you get that gradual power increase that's very satisfying, where you start off with like, oh, your little chocobos, your little imps. There is canonically a moment where little Rydia summons a Titan, which is much beyond her actual abilities, but she was traumatized, so she managed to summon it in the heat of the moment. But then, like, later on, as she gets older, yes, she actually learned how to summon Titan. She learned how to summon Shiva and Ifrit, and these are all classic summon monsters from Final Fantasy, which started in Final Fantasy III, which is more of a loose definition of a summoner with a class, not so much a story. But anyway, and then eventually you have to prove yourself by going to the moon and fighting Bahamut, and that's a very tricky fight. You can't just muscle your way through it. You gotta know what you're doing. And then you get the right to summon Bahamut, who is arguably the king of all summons and has been since the series started, even when he was the one who changed your class way back in the first game. So that's what I think when I think of summoner. Someone who does have that connection to their monsters. But I know that's not really the defining, like, the one definition, because as I said, Final Fantasy III, that's where it all kind of started for Final Fantasy, and you did have those classic monsters like Bahamut, Shiva, Ifrit, but I don't think they had stories behind them yet.
Yeah, I find that interesting, because I do think when we were talking about, initially we brought this topic up, I posted about it on social media and in the Blood God Discord, and immediately a lot of people started talking about Final Fantasy summoners. And I think that's easy to understand why that happened, because Final Fantasy does put a lot of identity into both their summons and the summoners. Like they are characters. Even in FF6, I would say, where summons are kind of this system and not really like a character. You still have these characters that are the summons that really stand out. You have characters like Maduin is an example we just talked about, but even like Rama is a pretty notable character early on. Ifrit and Shiva are characters that actually like talk to you and stuff like that. FF10, I think we're just going to get this out of the way now. Yuna, I think, is like maybe the most iconic summoner. Like definitely when you think of a character in a video game that is a summoner, like that is her identity. That whole game is built around the idea of the summoner's pilgrimage, the sick like battles that you have between the summoners. I love those every single time. And also like really cool. They put so much budget into those summons and made them such a like core gameplay mechanic of that that kind of like marks your progression. And even like in the final battle of the game, it's still about your summons, about the aeons that she calls down. So like it's really hard to not think of Yuna when I think of a summoner.
I think it's also very hard not to think of Final Fantasy, simply because, as
Yes.
you said, like they put so much of their budget into those summons, and that's always been the case. Like even in Final Fantasy VI, those are some really nice sprites that have these really cool animations. And then in 7, of course, like holy crap, materia, we can summon Bahamut with a 10-minute cinema, or Knights of the Realm, which is really cool. We're so proud of this that you can't skip it. So they love summons as much as anyone else because that lets them show off their cinematic skills, which they have lots of. I'll admit, I do love Square's cinemas.
I find it interesting though, because so we started that topic, and initially, like when we think about these topics, obviously, like we did a Blue Mage episode on Charlie Dropouts, and that was very Final Fantasy specific. There are ideas of Blue Mages in other games, but I think like Blue Mage is a very Final Fantasy thing, the same way that like Red Mage is kind of a Final Fantasy thing. And I was worried that Summoner might just be a broad Final Fantasy topic because summons and summoners are so core to that. And I do think that Final Fantasy is a major part of that, but let's expand it out a little bit. Talk about games like Diablo. So Diablo is a necromancer, a summoner. I don't know, raises a bone army, like pulls up flesh golems, like you're kind of doing summoning things. And I think like the classic enjoyment of a summoner's like job in a game like Diablo comes from a necromancer, can also come from characters like a druid who maybe you only summon one thing, but you summon like a big bear, and that's like kind of a core part of your identity. So Nadia, what do you think? Like necromancer, druid, do these count?
I would say when you're playing necromancer or you're playing druid, in most cases you are kind of giving up, if not all of your physical strength, then part of it, and you have some weenie weapon that is not like, say, a warrior's axe or a paladin's sword. It doesn't have that oomph. And you don't have the magical strength of like a mage. So you got to make do with what you got. That is your weapon. The monsters, the zombies, are your weapon. It's not cheating. You're a summoner. What else are you going to be?
The bones are their money. However the rest of that sketch goes. I think it's interesting because obviously the one that has come up multiple times, and we'll break the seal on this right now, is a Pokemon trainer, a summoner. I don't think a Pokemon trainer is a summoner.
You don't think so? I think a Pokemon trainer is a summoner.
Here's my issue. A summoner, in my opinion, has to call into being a creature. It cannot be like... I think a Pokemon trainer is a Beastmaster. I think they are like a tamer. I do not think they are a summoner because there is no act of summoning happening. Just because the Pokemon's inside a Pokeball does not mean that they aren't like... They are being physically carried around in some kind, in some way. So this is where the druid part might get me, because some people might say, well, Eric, a druid... In some cases, other cases it does actually summon, but in some cases a druid is just calling to nature friends. Like is Aquaman a summoner when he summons fishes from the deep? Not really. He's just calling on his animal friends to come back him up. So I personally do not think a Pokemon trainer is a summoner. I think that is a beast tamer. I don't know. Nadia, do you disagree with this?
I don't disagree with it, but I also think my definition of summoner is definitely a little different from yours, because I think I put this in the notes, but I was just talking about how a summoner to me is someone who summons or calls in any regard a monster or a pet or a friend to back them up. And while they themselves have kind of weak physical power, if any, and of course in the world of Pokemon, I'm assuming that if you don't have your Pokemon, you're going to get your ass kicked for your money, because there's no way to defend yourself if you don't have your Pokemon.
Ash did try to fight Mewtwo and got his ass kicked. Like, that's canonical.
Yeah, exactly. So I see where you're coming from, but I also feel like he's... I never even thought of the physical element versus the spiritual element, because Rydia calls up her monsters from the monster world, the Fey March. Whereas, God knows what's going on in those balls, but
there's like a robot chicken. There's a robot chicken bit about that, right? Where Pikachu is like at a nightclub.
He's in a nightclub, like chicks are spanking his ass, and
he's like doing a little dance and stuff. And yeah, he gets summoned, and there's like a Charizard, and he has like he's like doing the eye drops and stuff. He's like,
his eyes dilated. Yeah.
All right, let's go. Here's another question I'm going to pose to you.
Mm.
Does a summoner have to summon sentient creatures, or can a summoner be somebody who summons weapons? And I bring this up because of
Mm.
Prince Noctis Lucis Calum of Final Fantasy 15. Now, he does have actual summons that back him up, that show up in
Yeah.
that game. Rama, Titan, they actually appear and help him. The system's kind of wonky in how it works. I think summons looked the coolest in 15, but the way they worked was very strange. I wish they would find
Yeah.
like a merging of that. But what I will also say is that he summons blades. He summons weapons.
He does.
Does that
Fishing
count
rod.
as summoning?
I think so because Noctis is by his blood a summoner. It's just inherent to him, so he may as well summon weapons. And frankly, it's really funny when he summons his fishing rod. Like that's exactly the kind of thing I would do. Like, oh, I can summon shit. There we go. I don't have to like get up and get my Coke. I can just do it over here.
I think one of my favorite summoners in recent memory in games is a character named Bathraz from Chained Echoes. They are like a lizard person that basically has like kind of prosthetic arms, and they can summon both those arms and like other weapons and stuff, and their whole kit revolves around summoning these weapons, then kind of building up a small army of weapons and then attacking with them. They kind of remind me a little bit of the Defect in Slay the Spire, if you've played Slay the Spire,
Right.
where you kind of
Yeah.
have those orbs that you build up and then use for
Yeah.
resources, which also, hey, like Slay the Spire doesn't really have a summoner, but the orbs feel like a summoning mechanic in their own way, because you're kind of like casting them, having them sit on the field and do things, and then kind of like proc and do stuff like that. I don't think
Yeah.
I would call the Defect a summoner, but it has summoning vibes. But yeah, I think Bathraz is like a really cool concept for a character that I really, really liked. And even just the idea that this character could summon different blades and weapons, accoutrement, to attack enemies was super, super cool. I really like that character concept. But it made me think, like, does that count? I do think it somewhat counts, though it's maybe not as pure of a summoner as someone like Yuna, you know?
Yeah.
I do need to shout out, and crucially, I reached out. Rebecca Valentine contacted me with a write-in, and when she told me this, I was like, of course we're going to talk about this character. Sheena from Tales of Symphonia, in my opinion, all-time summoner. That is an S tier summoner right there.
I'm not familiar with her. What does she do that's so
she's
summoning?
she's a ninja, which is already super sick. This character is already freaking awesome, because throughout like the first arc, I would say, of Tales of Symphonia, the first half, she's kind of like chasing you and trying to kill I think Colette specifically. It's been a while since I played Symphonia, so my plot details are going to be a little hazy, but you eventually find out that, you know, she, like most Tales games, she's from a different region, and it turns out that like the thing you're doing is going to hurt that region, so they want to take out you and your party, and you kind of try to understand each other. I love Tales games, but they always kind of have the same plot structure and ideas, kind of like a mana game where it's like, we're always going back to the tree. Tales games are like, there's always two worlds, and doing something that's good for one is bad for the other. So Sheena starts as a ninja character and has a bunch of like ninjutsu that she uses, and then again, maybe about like around that halfway point, once she joins your party and you start kind of doing other stuff, you also find out that she has the power to summon. And so now she's a ninja summoner who can like call on these giant aeons that you have to go fight. I always call them aeons because of FF10, I'm sorry. You go and fight these like mythical creatures and have to like bring them to your side, and then when they join, Sheena can call on their powers and stuff. She is the coolest summoner, because she'll be doing like, imagine if Naruto was doing all that crazy stuff and like all those combos and like throwing kunai and stuff, and then suddenly was like Leviathan, and then Leviathan just came in and attacked, and it was like, what? I didn't know you had that. Like that, it's sick. I love it. I literally, talking to Reb about this, I was sitting there like, I think I need to replay Tales of Symphonia. I think it's time.
Can Naruto summon that weird fox thing that's inside him, like he has the kitsune? I don't watch Naruto.
Call the nine-tailed fox out?
Yeah.
I don't know. I also don't watch a lot of Naruto. My experience is largely with the Ultimate Ninja Storm games.
Yeah, cool. I reviewed one of those for GamePro back in the day.
please write in and tell me if Naruto can summon the nine-tail. I know he can like turn into the nine-tail fox, but transformation is not summoning.
Not the same.
I'm
We agree
I'm
on
strict
that.
about this. Yeah, yeah. So when a druid turns into a bear, that's not
It's not
summoning.
the
When
same.
a druid calls on a bear, that's summoning. And then
Now,
druids in like, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
how about the tarnished and the ashes?
Oh yeah, so we did have a write-in. I asked Axe the Blood God listeners to write in with their picks, and Spooky Man BR did say my Elden Ring character is a great summoner.
So's mine. My wolf boys.
I
love my
don't know.
wolves.
I'm
They're
of a
good.
few minds of this. I think what that character is doing is summoning. That is the act of summoning. However, they are relying on a tool in the world that, to my understanding, is maybe not universal, but is specifically allowed to, like, a person of their stature. They are able to call upon these things and summon. Other characters have been shown to also be able to summon and invade. And I think it is
Yes.
a world mechanic. It is not a character mechanic. And so that is why I think a tarnished, a whatever you call them in Dark Souls, the like sad guy that you play as in Dark Souls, I forgot. They always have like a special name. Bloodborne has one too. The
Yeah, I know what you
tarnished
mean.
is my favorite.
Me
The
too.
maidenless tarnished. I think when it's a world mechanic, it is then not a character specific mechanic. So you are summoning, but you are not a summoner. You have not, like, it's the same way that like if magic was ubiquitous, then like being a wizard is not really special. If everybody's special, then nobody
Nobody's
is. Yeah.
How about Lance Hart brings up the Mega Man, the enemy Navis who are summoned from certain ships, Gutsman and whatnot.
You know,
And roll.
I'll defer to your call, but I think that counts.
I don't see why not. It's not much different from taking a piece of materia and saying, Bahamut, come here and kick this guy's ass. Yeah, those were special attacks. They were. I see no reason why they're not summons.
Nadia, do you have any other summoners you want to talk about?
We did talk about the. Well, gosh, whatever. He has many names in SMT, but SMT is all about.
yeah. SMT
summon,
broadly
summon.
is demon summoning, devil summoning, whatever. Like, again, Devil Survivor, one of my favorites, but one of the games is called Devil Summoner or whatever. So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I would say broadly. Now, here's a question: if you're a Persona protagonist, are you a summoner? I think the protagonist is. And I also think the companions are the ones that, even if they
Yeah.
only summon one persona, they
only
are
have one,
doing a
you still
summoning.
have it. Yeah, but you are the fool or joker, so you can summon like as many as you want, but you do have one that's unique to you. Of course, you have Arsene in Persona 5.
Yeah,
Which
you
I
have the
sacrificed him.
mascot, basically.
Yeah, man, have you ever looked at Arsene's like design? It's like, holy shit, those heels. They're half the size of his body. It's amazing.
Yeah, P5 has some really incredible like persona designs. I
Yes.
think my favorites are definitely Arsene's really good. Maria is really good. That's Ons, I think.
Carmen, I
also-
always like Carmen.
Carmen, that's it. I don't know why I thought
Yeah.
Maria. No, what's the because wait, no, is Maria no, Maria Antoinette is Haru.
Yes, she's Marie Antoinette.
I also like that one. But the motorcycle that
Oh, the female
Makoto
Pope
gets-
motorcycle?
Yeah, that
Joanna?
one. Yeah,
Joanna?
that one's sick. I love that one.
That's so good. Let's
Some-
just make a motorcycle out of a Pope.
Still
who got
one of the
skinned alive or
best
something.
moments in an RPG in recent memory is Makoto like tearing her mask off and then like summoning a motorcycle. That entire segment goes so hard.
I have a friend who said that scene specifically turned her trans when she
okay.
stomps the floor and just like rips off her mask, like it just did something to her.
Yeah, you see that and you're like, identity right there.
Yeah.
that's goals.
Pretty powerful scene. Like anytime they rip off their masks in that game is actually still like really just amazing to watch.
What about Dagger and Aiko? I don't know what those are off the top of my head.
Aiko was 9, wasn't she? Mega Man 9, Jesus Christ. Final Fantasy 9.
Oh, I
And
thought
Dagger is
Garnet.
Garnet.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Again, I have not played a lot of FF9, so I don't
I thought
know.
you have.
I don't know deep plot details or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say they're summoners. Like Rydia, their whole identity is summoners. Garnet's identity is actually very sad. It kind of reminds me of, I mean, spoiler for a 50,000-year-old game. Very similar to, like, say, Indigenous children in Canada and Australia being adopted out to white families and losing their identity for their own good, quote unquote.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's she was definitely a summoner. That's part of her identity. It was definitely part of the story. Aiko, I don't even like Aiko, but she's a summoner. Aiko can summon Maduin, just under the proper translation, which is Madine.
And
he's also like a beast man. But
hell yeah.
Maduin is one of those mistranslations that has stuck, kind of like Ultros. Like, you rarely see Madine, but they are definitely the same character.
Wait, is Ultros a mistranslation?
Oh yeah, Ultros is supposed to be Orthos. That was his original name, and
Ultros
they did try to
is
go
so
back
much
to it.
better. Ultros is
It really
so good.
is. Yeah, it's I told Ted Woolsey, like, you're pretty much immortalized in like this era that you made.
It's beautiful.
It's pretty funny. Yeah.
Let's talk about another more recent example, and one that did come up a few times from listener write-ins. The pound mate system in Like a Dragon. Honestly, maybe one of the best parts of that combat system, which is Ichiban can use his cell phone app to call in delivery help of people that he has met along his journey. I think it is the most clever way of integrating summons into that game.
Doesn't his friend, I can't remember his name, it's been a while since I played, but he can summon pigeons to attack people who are being annoying. It's great.
Nanba can technically summon pigeons and stuff on his base class of homeless guy. But yeah, I think
laugh or you'll cry.
I think the pound mates are the ones that are like the most recognizable, because obviously they pull in a lot of cameos and stuff that way, so you get like the diaper guys and stuff like that. But there's something about the him like swiping on the phone and then calling them down, and then in come the assists. It's so good. It's so well done. Like there's something about Like a Dragon. I think it could have really easily just been we made an RPG, right? Like we did an RPG, but it has such love for not just Dragon Quest, obviously, and stuff like that, but for just the mechanics of an RPG, right? Like the idea of summoning and being able to call down help and stuff like that. It could have just been like, oh, you hit a thing and then somebody comes in and attacks or whatever, but like the performance, the cinematography put around it, like the way it's this big call down, the way like I think of FF8 summons and FF10 summons, like all the grandeur of it is so good. I love it every single time. The crawfish, oh my god. the crawfish is so good, especially in Like a Dragon 8. Also, this is one that I am less familiar with because I have not gotten to that part in the game yet, but in Xenogears, Maria, she summoner question mark? Because she's the little girl that can like fight, but then she calls down her mech to do like special attacks. Summoner question mark?
Let's give it to her because she's a child. Just give her a participation.
She's a child on the battlefield. There's like questions to be had about that, of course, but
come in here. You have something. If you want to talk about children on the battlefield, we have to talk about the Trails of games sometime, just about that specifically. But yeah,
does Trails have summoners in it?
That's what I was just wondering. I have not covered the gamut by any means, so if someone knows, by all means, let me know. But there's got to be. The people can summon like Panzer Soldats, like the big mechs and stuff like that. So I'll say yes. Reen is a summoner. He does summon. I forget the name of the monster. Sorry, the mech. But yeah.
I'm laughing because I just now noticed that Vic put some notes in our notes, so I have to read some of them now. I do want to point out, Vic mentions that FF14 Summoner is hardly a summoner. FF11 is where it's at. Like 10, it's more like having a pet, plus with 11's trust system, the whole game plays like you're building your trust Pokedex and summoning every major and secondary NPC in the game. My understanding is that the summoner class in 11 is also like you have to actually go and like get the summons and stuff like that, which I think is great. I love the idea that a summoner has to conquer or defeat the monster that they want to summon. That's the thing. Again, I'm going to refer to JJK, Jujutsu Kaisen, the manga / anime. One of the characters, basically, you find out that the way he summons is that he has to defeat the demons, and he does have one demon that like nobody in his family has ever been able to defeat. Like they all know the ritual to summon, but it's so powerful that like no one has ever been able to beat it outside of like one of his ancestors. And there's a great pivotal moment. I won't get into too many details, but he gets into a fight where his back is against the wall, and so he summons that demon to be like, well, if I'm going to die here, I'm going to take you with me by summoning the demon that nobody can beat. And it is so sick. It's so good.
It's kind of like that in FF4. Because, as I said, Rydia starts off with like kind of basic summons, but if you want to get the stronger summons, like when the second half of the game, when you go to the land of the summoned monsters, you meet the king and the queen, which is Ashura and Leviathan. And it's really funny because Leviathan's like this meek little guy saying, oh, talk to my wife, I don't know anything. And you talk to Ashura, and she's like, you beat me and you can summon me. And again, that's another battle where you have to think, and you can't just power through it because she can heal herself very quickly. And then finally Leviathan says, okay, yeah, I'll take you on, and if you take him on, you can summon him. And I just like the fact they're like this husband and wife. It's like, oh, okay, hi, Rydia, how you doing? Oh, you can't just summon me, you gotta beat me first. And it's like, okay, there you are, you're done. Good girl.
I also want to shout out Golden Sun and the summoning in that game.
Visions.
Yeah, I've not reached that part yet where I have access to it, but I've seen those summons before, and they are gorgeous. They're so good. Like honestly, Golden Sun in the battle screen is so gorgeous. I wish I don't like the little chibi characters they have in the overworld. I don't like them. There's something weird about them. They look like Mega Blocks. If you ever had Mega Blocks as a kid.
Yeah. You did the knockoff Legos that never really clicked together properly.
Was not crazy about that. But once you're in a battle screen, oh my god, that game looks gorgeous. It's so good. I also want to shout out Divinity Original Sin. This is a really weird shout out, but when I first played DOS 1, one of my characters was a summoner, and summoning in those games feels really, really good. You get to like basically build up like pet armies and stuff like that, and you kind of have to think about like how you're going to use them tactically, and I think that carried over very well into Baldur's Gate 3 when they adapted a lot of those mechanics to have like elementals and familiars and things like that. We did have someone saying a warlock is not a summoner because familiars don't count. I don't know how I feel about that, because I think if it's a pet, we have to go by Pokemon rules. That is a tamer, not a summoner. So I would agree with that. But I think if you are in any way summoning it from another, even if it exists in that other plane, so say like you summon a demon that's like hanging out in hell and you bring him to your side to fight for you, that counts as summoning. But if it's hanging out with you all the time, it's your pal. That's a tamer. That's different.
I do want to give a shout out while it's on my mind to Wild Arms, which let you summon the beasts of the four the four directions, like a dragon, turtle, the vermilion bird of the east, I think it is, and the white tiger of the south. I got that all mixed up, but it's the same idea. And they tried really hard to make it look good, and it was kind of cool. And then Final Fantasy VII came out with its summons and just blew it out of the water with how good it looked. Poor Wild Arms, it really tries its best.
We do have Trials of Mana. Second Densetsu 3 has Reese, who is a summoner, can call upon creatures and stuff.
Yeah, cool. That's right. That's not exactly common in Mana. And she has like a little flammy, like little white dragon with her, which is a very important character in the lore of Mana, so I'm curious to see what that's all about, because that looks, as I said, it's not common. That's very interesting. But the magic system in Mana is summoning. It's based on summoning because you call the elemental, you call Gnome, you call Luna, you call Shade, and they cast the spell. So that's just a little summoning with extra step, I guess.
I do think those magical systems are really sick, because I like anything where like the magic is based on something in the world, especially when a character is like, they're not calling on magic from within themselves. They're calling on like assistance from a deity of some kind or something like that.
That's exactly what it is.
I think that like cleric type system is really interesting. We should talk about that someday. But the cleric episode of Class Conscious, the most thrilling, riveting episode.
5 hours of slow talking. Now what makes you a cleric?
Let us discuss the gods.
The gods. We start with a pantheon of Kryn. That's the only one I know.
That's the thing, is nobody ever wants to be a cleric, but everybody wants a cleric in their party. So
Exactly.
it's tough. It's tough. We were talking about that because we're going to do a BG3 run for the charity stream, confirming that here. We are starting a Baldur's Gate 3 run. And the whole time I was sitting there like, so there's 3, potentially 4 of us. Someone's either going to need to play a cleric or something cleric adjacent, or if there's 3 of us, we can just make Chart follow us everywhere. But that's it's you need, I think at several points in that game, you do need somebody with some cleric talents. Like that stuff is so handy. Yeah,
kind of like the whoever it is on Game of Thrones that says we do not sow. I do not heal. I am so bad at healing. I can tank, but I cannot heal.
So I've become the de facto healer. So I cleared, fun fact for those of you at home, I cleared Valagarmanda Extreme this week. My first ever prog of current content. Very fun. I did that with a group, including some pals who've been on the show. And some pals who should be on the show. We're going to try and get them on at some point. But first time ever clearing a prog, I was Sage. I'm also working on building up my Astro because I want an alternate healer and one that's not a shield healer. And I'm not really vibing with White Mage at high level play.
I don't like White Mage. It's too boring.
I have like an almost level 70 White Mage at this point, and once I hit like the higher levels, I was like, I don't think I like this loop. I don't think I'm vibing with it.
A lot more fun.
Astro's fun. I like Astro and pulling the cards and being like, okay, you get a card, you get a card.
And you get a card, you get a card.
I bring this up because I have become the de facto healer, and there are 2 things you should know. Number 1, somebody has to do it, right? Like, it's not always the most glamorous job, but here's the secret thing. I think I always was a healer at heart, because healers are the ones who have power. Every healer secretly is like, you want healing? Ask for it. They like to just hold the reins a little bit, and they're like, they have the power in the group because they're the ones, hey, look, you just took 2 Vuln stacks. That you're on your own. I gotta not burn my GCDs. Come on, we gotta keep damage uptime here. You gotta dodge some mechanics. You could ask me nicely.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't like that power. It scares me. And then I'm not good at multitasking, so I get really mixed up. All my signals get mixed up. I press the wrong buttons, and everyone dies, and I feel really bad.
That is the one thing as a healer. If you die, it's way worse.
It's over.
Like if a DPS dies, that happens all the time.
No one cares.
they're tanking the floor. If a tank goes down, it can be kind of problematic depending on what phase you're in. There's some mechanic phases in Valagarmanda where it specifically targets tanks, busters and stuff like that, and then that's a problem. But if a healer goes down, panic, sheer panic.
Yeah.
So that is like healer is a demanding job, but I find it rewarding because it's demanding. But we're not talking about healers. We're talking about summoners who oftentimes are healers. I do find that
they can be.
I think about FF10, obviously, like Yuna is not just the summoner, she's also the white mage of the party. And I think that works out pretty well, but it did create kind of an archetype that like summoner is healer in my mind, but that's not always the case. I do find that I like when summoners can fight. And again, going back to Sheena from Symphonia, I think that works very, very well. Trying to see if there's anybody else that we had. Is Bayonetta a summoner? Possibly. Theoretically.
She seems to summon the monsters from a different dimension with her hair, so I'm not going to tell her she's not a summoner, are you?
I don't have the right to tell Bayonetta anything about how she lives her life, so I find that I have to.
Bayonetta. She talks to you.
Yeah, Bayonetta says she's a summoner. Who am I to say nay? I don't think
she could say I have green skin. I'm like, yes, ma'am, you do.
I also wanted to mention, it came up a few times. I'm not familiar with Geneforge, but apparently Geneforge and the shapers in Geneforge were a pretty common thing that people talked about when it came to interesting summoning. I tried looking into it. The game looked weird. And so I spent about 5 minutes looking at it and was like, I will mention it on the podcast. So no one can say we didn't mention it, but we did mention it. And now I want to read out some listener comments. Robo Riley says, favorite summoner Garnet, because I'm a sucker for reconnecting with your stolen heritage twice, first at birth and then after what the twins did to her. Maiden Sorry is a really tragic section of the game. Favorite in-game execution of a summoner. FF Tactics Advance. Summoning was so cool and so worth the effort getting it. Highly agree. I do think Tactics summoning is really sick. First of all, original Tactics, it was so like load intensive that it would destroy the video game every time you summoned.
Did.
Yeah. I do love that. Zelicium says, I'm curious as to how summoners are going to be defined. You can listen to the rest of the pod that we just recorded for that. But I think Lenneth Valkyrie counts because she's summoning the Einhair Jar to her side for battle. You also get stories of who they are and how they die, which I think adds more depth beyond let me summon these beasts or figures with no additional backstory. I agree. I agree. I think once they are part of the Einhair Jar and she's summoning them, that's totally summoning. Yeah.
And she even has like a battle cry, like to my side, Einhair Jar, to me.
Oh, it's like, so sick.
It sounds so cool every time. So yes, I agree.
Valkyrie Profile. Someone should really record a podcast about how good Valkyrie Profile is.
Yeah.
You know?
What do you
Some
know?
enterprising RPG pod out there should do that. You can go listen to our Pantheon about that. Criminal Justice hot take. We already talked about this. Warlocks are not summoners. No one confuses this, but one pet is different from multiple pets. Necromancers are kind of bone summoners, but best summoner is the Arisen from Dragon's Dogma. Pawns are just summons.
They absolutely are. I agree.
I do love the
You see them in their
system.
weird phantom world. Pawns are so weird. They weirded me out so much that I had to stop playing the game. It was just like, I don't know what was up with the Dragon's Dogma. I am not a Dragon's Dogma person. I tried. I appreciate it for what it is, but it's just too strange.
Dogma 2 I would like to get back to and finish at some point, but I always loved going to sleep and then waking up and I made Abraham Lincoln my pawn and he'd be like, I've returned from another world. We killed a troll. And I'm like, good job, Abe.
Free the slaves.
We have Milk and Vessel both shouted out the Poundmate system. We had Spooky Man BR's comment that we talked about with the Poundmates. And then we have Lord Bob Bree with a very interesting niche pick here. I like the Beautiful Evil Lord from Half Minute Hero. He gets his own mode where he essentially plays an RTS where he summons different types of monsters to counter the different types of enemies. And despite being an evil lord, he's actually very nice and heroic. I like that. Is Jill Valentine an MVC2 summoner?
Is she?
Where did those zombies come from? Who knows? Who's to say?
Who knows? Where is Pocket?
Could be a summoner. I mean, there are a lot of summon type characters in fighting games like Jacko. Can summon those different minions and use them. I do like that gameplay.
Brawl or whichever game it was, the Pokemon trainer uses.
Oh, hold on now. That's a Pokemon trainer. We talked about this, Nadia.
He himself does not fight. He just yells at his animals.
Now, if you had said Pac-Man is a summoner, then now we're talking. Because Pac-Man, where'd that fire hydrant come from? He summons the fire hydrant.
What fire hydrant are you talking about?
He summons a fire hydrant. He puts a fire hydrant down and it shoots out the water.
Which game is this?
This is in, I think, Ultimate, but also wasn't Pac-Man in Brawl, or was it only in Ultimate?
I thought you were talking about like the original Pac-Man on the arcade.
Oh no, I'm talking about Smash Pac-Man.
You're having a stroke?
No,
okay,
no, I'm talking about Smash Pac-Man.
Okay, Smash Pac. Yes, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, 4 and Ultimate. Right, 4 is, I think, when Pac-Man got added. There are a lot of characters that do summoning in Super Smash Brothers because they have to. I mean, you can't just, carry all that with you.
And, of course, you have the summoning item that you throw down, and some asshole comes out and they're like, hey, I'm a reject who didn't get on the main roster. How you doing? I'm going to put the sword up your ass because I'm mad.
I'm Isaac from Golden Sun. They'll never let me see the light of heaven.
Bye.
Here's a hand.
Waluigi. Waluigi hates this. Waluigi hates life.
They'll never put me on the roster. I know. I made him sound like one of those gangsters.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, see? Yeah. That'll do it for summoners. If we didn't shout out your favorite summoner, let us know. Send in a message, mailbag in the Discord, at BloodGodPod on Twitter, all that. Radical Defect saying, I will sell my soul for Golden Sun for it. Look, we all would. But thank you so much for listening and checking that out. We do have more segments coming up, starting with a series of random encounters. The World of Warcraft team forms the first wall-to-wall union inside Activision Blizzard. Yay,
all right.
Unions. Really big push over there.
Let's do this.
Video game performers under SAG-AFTRA are going on strike. Any currently in development projects are apparently unaffected, though that may change. There's been a lot of controversy over whether GTA 6 will be a part of the strike. Right now, they're saying it is not part of the strike, but it could be put into play. Keep in mind.
That could be a real big piece of leverage right there.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Fans have spotted a Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remastered logo at San Diego Comic-Con. Time to get our hopes high, only to be shattered later. I don't know. keep that in expectations. Also spotted Tales of Xillia remaster popped up on retailer websites.
Yeah, heard about that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, they could do that one. I think that's an interesting one to go back to. Fallout London's out now. Yay, Fallout London. That one has been a long time coming. So has Stalker 2, but that got delayed to November. Just needs a little bit more time. Honestly, what that studio has been through in trying to make that game, more power to them. They've been through a lot.
Sorry, I haven't played Stalker. I wonder if I'd like it.
I don't. Do you like immersive sims, right?
Yeah, and I like nuclear disaster. Oh shit! Something's in Chernobyl.
You might like it. You might vibe with it. Yeah.
I might. Looks like it scared the shit out of me though.
Humble Games is restructuring. Employees have reported that they've all been laid off, but they're saying we're not closing. It's a restructuring. Already, there's been some statements out there from studios that were under Humble Games. It seems like right now the portfolio is being retained. Honestly, might be causing some problems. I saw a statement from the Coral Island devs where they were saying that they don't really know what to do with their updates because they don't have control of their back end. Humble does. So they're actually handing out Steam codes for all Switchbackers because they don't know when they're going to be able to do any of that. There's a lot of mess there. Good
to them. Isn't Slay the Spire 2, I think, is trapped under that identity?
Oh no, not Slay the Spire. That's a national institution. We gotta save that.
We really do.
Mario and Rabbids lead developer David Soliani is leaving Ubisoft. I don't know if that means... I don't know if that means no more Mario and Rabbids, but incredible run there. Obviously got a lot of notice for that one E3 where he was in the crowd getting very emotional about the shout-outs for Mario and Rabbids. All deserved. I think the Mario and Rabbids series is absolutely spectacular. Sparks of Hope is an incredibly underrated game.
I do want to play that one.
Yeah, I highly recommend it to any enjoyer of a tactics game. That's all for the news this week, but let's roll on into the tavern, put our feet up, chug a potion or two, talk about what we've been playing. Nadia, what have you been up to?
Well, there's still a lot of Final Fantasy XIV stuff I gotta mop up. Got my Dragoon to almost level 100. I've been grinding Fates, God help me. Just
Same, but for different reasons.
Effing around. I'm going to complete the role quest for DPS Melee, and I then will level up my tank. Then I will try to do Viper, or vice versa. So I don't want to bore anyone by going on and on about 14 again. So I've been kind of to talk about. I think I'll talk about how I've also been watching, just out of because I have something on the background when I work. Courage the Cowardly Dog. Like, do you remember that?
Hell yeah, yeah. The slab. Return the slab.
It's a effed up cartoon. Like when it starts, it's like, oh, this is rated G. As I'm watching on it's some Canadian feed and. It's like, oh, it's rated G, as if this Exorcist parody, which is quite it's disturbing at times. That's rated G, and that weird blue nightmare thing that appeared in the last episode, that's rated G. Okay, what a great series though. Like it's just messed up in a way that you don't see very often in kids' cartoons. And people always say, oh, this cartoon was dark and blah, 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 blah about every cartoon, but it's only really true in a handful, and I think that's like one of the handfuls, along with, I guess, Batman, TAS, and maybe X-Men, depends on your point of view. And the Runaway Lesbians, yeah, it actually straight up had an episode where two lesbians were running away from their abusive boyfriend. It was that was The Mask, I think. That was a spooky episode. They're all spooky. Courage is a nightmare. Yeah, Courage is absolutely a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a really interesting show. I'd kind of be curious to go back and watch because I do remember liking it as a kid, even though my parents didn't want me watching it because they thought it was too dark for a kid's show.
It's a little demonic.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of shows nowadays that you can feel kind of the influence there of Adventure Time having more serious topics and stuff like that. But what I did like about Courage was that Courage was an episodic show, and so it was kind of like Monster of the Week. And Big soapbox time. I watched some of the most garbage television I've ever watched in my life the other day because I
Oh.
just felt like watching garbage television. And I'm probably going to anger someone by saying this, thus continuing my villains arc. But I opened Netflix and they were like, do you want to watch The Magicians? And I was like, I got nothing else to do. Yeah, I'll try this. And I did not like that show.
I haven't seen it.
I think it's not a good show. And I usually am pretty like chill about like knowing that a sci-fi original series is going to have like, yeah, some budgetary limitations and stuff like that. And I love CW shows, which kind of fall under the same category in my mind. But man, something about this show was just really not clicking for me. Sorry if you worked on it or anything, but I just did not enjoy it.
What was it about besides magicians?
Well, so that was the thing is I went in and was hoping it would kind of be like a Monster of the Week thing where we're kind of dealing with, you know, like whatever problem the magicians need to deal with or whatever. You know, it's kind of set. The whole idea is that it's like, what if Harry Potter was at grad school and there was also like murder and stuff happening, like darker things happening and afoot. It never really like nails that tone though, and it feels very. There's something about like a sci-fi show or like a CW show where they can't push the envelope too far, so they push it as far as they possibly can within the bounds of like what you can show on television, but they still want to be edgy. And so they're always like, there's always some dude who's like, yeah, there's like a dead body over there, no big deal.
Yeah,
I hate writing like that. It's so bad. And yeah, and they're always like, they want to play up like, oh yeah, there's dark stuff. What, are you bothered by that? And it's so weird. But like, it ended up being this show where it was like, the main guy is like the special chosen person and he's having like visions of terrible things that are going to come to pass, and there ends up like already within episode 1 too many plot lines and too many like hanging threads to tug on and stuff like that. And I was like, I kind of just wanted a Monster of the Week vibe. Like I guess I'd probably have to go to like Buffy or something like that to get that, because my understanding is that Buffy is a little bit more kind of like, we're dealing with whatever we're dealing with this week, and I think that's what I want ultimately. So is it not YA enough in the beginning, says Lance Hart? No, it's not YA. I would call it like YA for people who think that YA is too like juvenile or not like edgy enough. There's like a weird subcategory of that.
Yeah, like a terrible genre.
Yeah, where they're like, I want the Hunger Games, but if there was more murder and sex.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
I actually really liked the original Hunger Games.
I love the Hunger Games. I think the
original book was written really well.
The first 2 Hunger Games movies, in my humble opinion, are exceptional movies. They're extremely well. They're well shot. They're well made. They're incredibly good adaptations, while also adding to the source material in a way that does not feel like it detracts at all. I think the way that they handled certain scenes that were in the book, like a lot of the stuff around Rue, I think is actually really interesting in the movie, the way they adapt it. If you can't tell, so when I was working in a summer camp once upon a time, I was reading The Hunger Games because there was a copy of The Hunger Games that got passed around between all the counselors. So all of us pretty much read it that summer. And I loved it. I ate it up. I thought it was fantastic. I was already a fan of Battle Royale at that point, so it was like, it was just candy to me. The constantly shaky cam in the first movie kind of pisses me off. Yeah, it does get a little bit much. It's not like
the era of the shaky cam.
The late Bourne movies are the ones where that gets really bad, where they're just like, look at Jason Bourne running everywhere. For those listening, my hand is, this is the hand I shoot with. But yeah, it's I love those Hunger Games, and I like YA stuff. I actually think YA gets like a bad rap sometimes.
Yeah, I think I'd be good at writing YA.
Yeah, there's like really good stuff in there, and there is something to be said about like writing for that audience, and like, you know, there's really good writing in there. I mean, when I was a kid, I was reading a lot of like adult novel. I read A Clockwork Orange in like the 7th grade, which many people said I should not have read in the 7th grade, but like. Yeah, I watched Evangelion in 6th grade, so like we already like we're far past that. Anyways, as for what I've been playing, I really want to get around to. I'm going to shout it out to hold myself accountable, I played this at SGF, and now it's out, and it's getting a lot of traction, which I expected, but it's getting even more than I expected. Kunitsugami from Capcom. I have a copy of it. I want to sit down and actually play the full game, but the demo I played at SGF was just fantastic. It's like you have this path that you're on, and you're kind of guiding this shrine maiden to the end of the path, and you have like a day-night cycle, and when it's day, you can kind of run around and collect orbs from different things and recruit villagers to your side, and then use those like resources that you've collected to advance the shrine maiden along the path. You have to like literally like carve a path for her with your sword, and then when it turns to night, she stops, and then demons start flooding out of the gate that you're advancing towards, and you have to defeat the demons. It's almost like a action RPG meets tower defense system, because you have those villagers that you've established to like defend your. So many people have called it a like, oh, this is like a PS3 game. This is like a game that feels out of time. And normally I would get kind of annoyed by those things because I feel it's not very descriptive. But in this case, I will allow it because it is. It's the kind of game that I think Capcom could only really make when they're swinging for the fences and getting so much success the way that they are, because it feels experimental. It feels made to only like sell, you know, a low number of copies. I think it's even a lower priced game than normal, and it's also on Game Pass and stuff. But what you get is something that is so bold, so like different from everything else you've played, that I honestly think it's like a sleeper hit of the year. And I know it's weird to call a Capcom game a sleeper hit, but like if I walked up to you independent of context, it was like, you've been hearing about that Kunitsugami, you're like, what the fuck is that? But it works really, really well. I think it's a spectacular game. I really like the demo, and I'm going to play the full game coming up. I've also been playing a lot of Marvel Rivals, which is so NetEase made in Overwatch is probably the best way to put it. That game is a lot of Overwatch concepts lifted and then loosely adapted to Marvel superheroes. It's okay, is what I'm going to say. I don't know that I think this game is exceptionally good, because I think some of the things they do some really great stuff when it comes to thinking about how to evolve the concepts of Overwatch. So you have characters that have mechanics that are going to feel very similar. Like, I was describing a character to somebody else the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, they have Zenyatta ult, but you can toggle it between damage, boosting, and healing the way that Mercy toggles her beams. And like that's, you can kind of describe a lot of them in that way. And it reminds me of when, after like the boom of League of Legends specifically, a lot of MOBAs started coming out that were all kind of like, well, we're going to take those ideas and kind of jumble them around a little bit and then make our own, and we'll get some of that. This feels like that, and I would normally say that it feels a little bit too late, even because like we're past the era of Paladins and Battleborn and all the other like Overwatch alikes that existed. And it feels rude to even call Battleborn that. I know. I'm a Battleborn defender. Calm down, Battleborn faithful. But
Battleborn for life.
There are people out there. They
I know.
They still love Battleborn. They'll never love them back. But it's Marvel Rivals is really weird because it's got the look. I do think it has nailed the look. I think the visuals carry a lot of it. I'm not particularly wild about the map design because it often feels like they just took a lot of the general architecture and design language of Overwatch and transplanted it. A lot of the maps feel very similar to maps that are in like if we were joking like, oh, this is like Hanamura, but like a different version of Hanamura and stuff like that, or like King's Row, stuff like that. The environment is destructible. That's one of their big things. It kind of just ends up being an annoying thing at the end of the day, because you can like, you're behind cover and then all of a sudden it blows up and now you're not behind cover anymore. It's like, oh, that's crazy. It's not really that great. What I do think is interesting is they have synergies. So they have like characters who are like can team up together. So like the Guardians have a synergy with each other. Different like Wanda, the Scarlet Witch and Magneto have like a synergy together where like if they're on a team together, the characters either get some sort of bonus, some sort of boost, or they get like access to a new ability. Like I was playing Penny Parker, who's like in her Evangelion spider suit and stuff like that. And because of Venom was also on my team, I could like use symbiote powers, which is really cool. And I'm sitting here, and I guess the broader point of this segment and what Marvel Rivals has made me realize is just how massively Overwatch has dropped the ball. Like Overwatch is in such a bad state, and it's crazy to think about because this was the thing that it came out. It was a revolutionary shooter. You know, it used a lot of the ideas of Team Fortress 2, but I think used them well in the way that Blizzard could. Like, Blizzard has done this historically. Like, they take an idea that exists, but they refine it and they give it that Blizzard polish. And they say, like, we're going to do our version of it. It's going to be very good. And they do that. They've historically done that well.
Yes.
It is stunning, and it has all the cinematics, the heroes, the characters. They're so recognizable. Oh my god, the designs of so many of those early Overwatch characters, that base cast is so good.
It had so many fans, so much fan lore, so many. The fandom was huge, and then they just dropped it because I guess they wanted to be competitive.
Well, yeah. So I was talking with friend of the show, my Normandy FM co-host Ken Shepard, who is still an Overwatch diehard. You know, he loves to suffer. And one of the things that we were talking about was Overwatch fumbled on having any sort of like cinematic universe. Like, yes, they should not have been beaten to the punch by League of Legends and Arcane. Like, Overwatch should have had an Arcane, and it's crazy to think that there are people who don't even like play League of Legends, but they cannot wait for that new season of Arcane to come out. And like, Arcane was extremely good. Like let's be clear about that. And that was Studio Fortiche. That was like an incredible studio doing incredible work on a property. But now we're at the point where video game adaptations have never been more popular, and Overwatch still has nothing in the tank. Like, they're not doing any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Also, they put all their chips on being the NFL of esports.
Yeah.
And it collapsed. I mean, the pandemic was a major part of that, but like, Overwatch as a game, I think, was never really the game to watch. No. It always kind of like lagged behind stuff like League of Legends, and honestly, like games like Rocket League, which have just quietly had a lot of esports success over the years. It's like it fell apart, and it kind of sucks to watch because they put all their chips on that, and you're going like, now we're sitting here and Blizzard is putting out statements. Aaron Keller is saying like, we've heard you, 5v5 is controversial, we're thinking about doing 6v6, we'll run some experimental modes to see what the players want. And then he's saying in the blog, like, people are complaining about Overwatch being too samey, of like 5v5 not working. Like, they're just struggling to maintain fans at this point.
Yes.
They're in like keep the game alive mode and not like thriving at the top of the field anymore. Honestly, games like Valorant have swooped in, even Apex, taken their lunch. And so Marvel Rivals comes in, and I'm like, it's not the greatest. Like, I personally think it's a better game than Overwatch? No, I don't think it's a better game than Overwatch. However, I do think it's going to eat some lunch of Blizzard's, because Blizzard is just trying to keep their game alive, and Marvel Rivals is that new hotness. It's that new fun. Yeah. And it's kind of crazy to think about that, like, that's the place we got to with this game that back in 2016 you thought was going to take over the world. And
no, honestly, one of the reasons I started playing FF14 is because my friends were so into Overwatch lore and everything, and then they dropped it all because Blizzard dropped it, and like, yeah, we're going to play Final Fantasy 14. And I looked at it. Of course, I had other urgings from outside sources, but that was one of the things that made me say, oh, maybe I'll take a look because all my friends are here.
Yeah. And it's weird to think about because, like, you know, you mentioned earlier 14. Really, I've also been playing 14 a lot. And 14 is a game that, like, has managed to maintain it over the years. They managed to right the ship. They started out bad and then became incredible what they were. They Realm Reborn themselves. They coined a term, basically.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy to see Overwatch fumble like that. And that's my takeaway from Marvel Rivals, is sitting there playing it. I'm like, this game's okay. And I think Overwatch is a better game, design-wise, design space-wise, even, like, character-wise. Like, the way that those character kits work is better to me in Overwatch. But I'm having more fun playing Marvel Rivals because it's something different, and Overwatch has not felt different in a very long time.
Right.
So, yeah, that's my weird takeaway and our weird jut into hero shooters and shooters in general. Shout outs to people who say we don't talk about RPGs enough.
There you go.
Otherwise, yeah, no, I've been poking away at Tsukihime still. Still not even done with the Arcwood route, much less the CL route. I think I'm near the end of the Arcwood route, but that's been really good. I've been enjoying that. I finally got to the scene where they clearly cut out the sex scene from the original game. If you didn't know, Tsukihime, when it originally came out, was an adult visual novel, and
Oh dear.
adult meant that because that was how you got a game made back in the early aughts, especially a visual novel. And so there's very clearly a point in the remake where they're like, and here's where the sex scene would be if we had it.
Here's my sex scene would be if I had one.
Yeah, I like that they kept that. There is like, you know, like that is, I think, an important narrative beat, and I'm not gonna like be one of the people yelling on Twitter who are like, oh, they're putting too much sex in the movies and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like, I think that's
a
dumb.
little bit weird.
Yeah. Nadia, have you heard about the drama around Twisters?
No, I have not been paying the least bit attention to Twisters because I saw the original in the theater and I'm like, oh yeah, those are tornadoes, all right. So I just never really bothered with Twisters.
Twisters is an exceptional movie. It is a summer blockbuster. If you're going to see it, go see it in a theater. Like, it is a rootin', tootin', hollering good time. Glenn Powell, you have my blade. I will follow you into the battle. Like, he is a Texas boy, and he plays an excellent Twister chasing cowboy up on that big screen, and there's lots of big destruction and stuff. It's really fun. It is a great time summer movie. It's just fantastic. At the end of the movie, there's been controversy over the fact that the romantic leads do not kiss at the end of the movie, even though it feels like they're set up for the big kiss at the end of the movie.
So they are set up as a couple and they don't kiss.
Yes. And there was even a quote going around, I think like Spielberg had left a note being like, have them not kiss, because apparently a kiss was filmed at some point. And there's been drama over they should kiss, they shouldn't kiss. I think it works without the kiss. I think it's fine. We're all adults. We know what they're going to go do later. We're not blind. We can see this.
I actually, like sometimes I actually really love what Nintendo did with Zelda and Link in Twilight, not Twilight Princess, Tears of the Kingdom, where they're clearly stooping. Like, it's just,
they live
it's
together.
Not subtle. They live in a
house
with a single bed, and they've been together. Like, I don't remember how long Tears of the Kingdom takes after Twilight.
It's like a couple years, I want to say. It's like at least 1 year, maybe 2.
So why would they? They're obviously in love. There's no way they're not having sex, and I don't think in their case there's anything about the game that necessarily has to make it obvious.
No.
I think it's nice that it's not obvious. I think it's nice that they leave clues, but you have to suss them out because Nintendo always has the power of plausible deniability, and they use it expertly. They come out with some character whose ass is as big as the moon and has boobs the size of melons, and they're like, "Oh no, it's just a normal person. No, there's no kink here whatsoever." This is just a
sword you summon to help you out in the RPG game. What's weird about this?
We forgot about them, didn't we?
Yeah, Monolith. So, I guess Xenoblade is a summoning game. Xenoblade 2 is a summoning game. Yeah.
Oh, it absolutely isn't too. It is.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But so I don't mind when it's subtle. Like, but at the same time, I'm not one of those people who are like, oh, too much sex. I write erotic stuff. I think being erotic is, it might be my upbringing, like, just because it's interesting.
I was born erotic. I'll die erotic.
Well, no, because when you grow up in Judaism, it's not like so much good and evil versus base and divine. I mean, sex is not really criminalized because God gave us lust, therefore it's good. So how could it not be good? So it's not really, I'm not saying that I didn't grow up with people who have hang-ups, but it just wasn't really, it's more of a drive to me. Like, it's there. You can deal with it.
I find it fascinating because, like, it's just a part of the storytelling. And I do think there are, like, there are absolutely movies that, like, play it up. Like, I was just talking about a series where, like, they have those scenes just to be like, haha, look at this. Like, look at what we're doing here. And honestly, I think violence gets used a lot more that way, where they're just like, they do something very shocking to like jar the viewer and stuff. But like, I don't know. It's strange. Like just put a good story on the page. I also understand why like they for Twisters specifically, like I think the end of it works very well to communicate that these people are like, what brought them together was their shared passion for something.
Yeah.
And that's just as romantic. Like there is something attractive about the fact that like, yeah, you're hanging out with Hot Cowboy, but also he's really into the things that you're really into. Like that's like having somebody with a shared passion is awesome. So find people who have shared passions. Head over to the Discord and be normal on it.
Please be normal.
Don't let me tying this into talks about cowboys do anything weird to the Discord. We have a good community. Don't ruin it.
Okay. It's not as depraved as we are yet.
We only have a couple discussions about whether 500 Gokus or 500 Sabers would win. Yeehaw, indeed. That's okay. Nadia, take us home.
Well, what can I possibly follow up with except I wanted to ask you a question. This is something that happened recently to me, so it's not really retro, but it's kind of retro. Okay, so I have a tendency to fall asleep and have micro dreams for a few seconds, and I wake up. I have severe sleep apnea, so if I don't get, and I use my CPAP, but if I don't get proper sleep, I just kind of nod off. And when I do that, I have these dreams that last like 3 seconds. And I had this dream about Chrono Trigger, and instead of Lean's bell in the Millennium Square, there was something called Lean's cheese, and it was a bell made of cheese. And I dreamed about that for 2 seconds, and I woke up, and I'm like, what the fuck? So
the big wheel of cheese.
It's just a big wheel. No, it was a bell shaped like, it was cheese shaped like a bell.
It was a bell-shaped cheese?
It was bell shaped like cheese, yeah, like the vache qui rit, indeed. Yeah, have you ever had like any sort of weird video game dreams or anything like that? I haven't had as many as I'd like to. Anything really cool?
I think we've talked about this before, but I am a pretty lucid dreamer most of the times. So
am I. Yeah.
Not always the kind where I can like take control and fly. That is like a thing that can happen. It's really weird, and usually like once I know I'm asleep and dreaming, like my body then starts to be like, I should wake up right now because this is weird. So it like takes a while to kind of get to the point where you don't like wake yourself up automatically. But yeah, you can like, if you're in a dream and you become lucid, like you can definitely be like, I'm gonna fly now, or I'm gonna open this door and go somewhere new. Like it's kind of neat.
That's cool.
In like a weird Inception-y way. So try that at home, kids. Dream journal. Literally, if you start keeping a dream journal and counting your fingers when you're awake, you'll probably start becoming more lucid in your dreams. Fun fact.
I didn't know about counting your fingers. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's an easy way to know that like if you're dreaming, is you look at your fingers, and if like the count is wrong, then like, you're like, that's not right. And you just need something. You need something that, like, again, Inception was very good about this. You just need something that makes you realize that you're dreaming. And that's kind of like the trigger that like switches your brain over, and you're like, okay, cool. Anyways, I always sound like a crazy person when I say this, but then somebody else is like a lucid dreamer and they're like, yeah. And so I'm like, anyways, I do have kind of like micro dreams, usually only when I like wake up in the morning and I go back to sleep. I'll kind of like, even today, getting up for the podcast, I always like, I'll set an alarm for like an hour before I should really wake up, and I'll kind of like wake up and I'd be like, am I getting up now? No, I'm gonna 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes, and so I'll have a bunch of like micro dreams in there. Sometimes the dream continues from previous, and then sometimes it's a new dream. For some reason, for me, it's always game shows. I always end up on game shows when it's like a tiny dream.
I like that.
Yeah, I've been on like The Price is Right. I've been on Legends of the Hidden Temple, Double Dare, Guts. Really weird. And sometimes I see them like third person, so like I see myself like on a TV screen or whatever, and that's kind of trippy. But video game dreams, absolutely. I think the game I've probably dreamed about the most is Dota, just because like I've played so many hours of it that like my brain is so familiar with that. Dota and League of Legends, like MOBA dreams. And then probably some 14 dreams, I think. Maybe more like kind of things that look like Final Fantasy 14 and not like within the game, but like I have actually dreamed of like playing Dota or being in Dota and stuff like that. So that's totally a thing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I am a lucid dreamer, but only up until the point where I really get into the dream. I am basically someone who I will start a dream and I'll say, this dream sucks, and I'll change over. But once I find a dream I theoretically like, I don't know what makes me stop, I will fall into the dream and just kind of, it will be very, very vivid. So yeah, that's me. Yeah, dreams are interesting. I actually had a really
Dreams are
funny one
crazy.
where I was kind of drifting off on the couch. I had like a nap. I only had like 30 minutes to get a nap in, and I'm drifting off, and my brain is like, "Oh, I don't like this dream. I'm going to change this dream." And then some other voice from inside of me said, "You have 30 minutes. You better take this dream and go to sleep." And I'm like, "Okay, fine." I don't know what that voice was, but it was really funny and it worked.
Yeah, it's the weird ones are always the dreams that are you don't realize you're dreaming, but it's so real that when you wake up, you're like it's very jarring. Like you're
Yeah.
jolting from one reality to the other. Those are the ones that always freak me out a little bit, and I'll be kind of like weird throughout the day because I'll be like, "That was I." Has a dream ever made you depressed? Yes.
Oh, all the
Like,
time. All the
yeah, where
time.
like you have a really sad dream or just like something happens in a dream that like really affects you and it like there's no
Yes.
reason for it. You know it was a dream. It's not real, but it like messes with you the entire day. Like that's an entirely different thing. So,
I've had dreams where it's messed with me for life. Like for some reason, I had a weird dream that combined the Amazing Digital Circus with that
mhm.
weird Wonka, hellhole that someone tried to make with the AI, and like those combined in my head. So I'm scared of Digital Circus now. Something about it leaves a really alarmed feeling in my gut. I like it, I watch it, but it's just like I look at it and I can't look at it the same way again. I just get this weird feeling.
Dreams, they're crazy, but don't let your dreams be dreams. I don't know. I was going somewhere with that and I lost it.
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Follow your
Subscribe.
dreams to Axe the Blood God. That'll do it for this week's show. Thank you so much for everybody who tuned in. We're going to the post show now. We've got a bunch of folks in here. I can't list them all off because I have streamer mode on. It like shortens
Oh,
everybody's name when it does
I can
that.
do that
So,
for you.
Nadia, who's in
So
there?
I'm gonna say hi. If you remember, do you remember like Romper Room where they'd have like the mirror and you talk to the mirror and I see so and so, and I that's you're way too young for that. Okay, so
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
gonna put up the Romper Room magic mirror and say I see anthrax bees, and I see Azixa, and I see criminal justice, and I see Drew, and I see that's you,
Justice.
Eric. I see Harvest Lunatic. I see JB. I see Laguna Matata 124. I see Robo Riley, and I see Sardin, and I see Spooky Man BR, and I see Zubat Man, and I see all my friends in the Twitch chat. Thank you for coming.
Well, I see us ending this podcast. So for Nadia, for myself, and for Kat, who could not be here, out on the high
Yeah.
seas for smokes, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week on Axe of the Blood God.